Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. In today's review, I wanted to talk about the Zoom H1 XLR audio recorder. So you've probably most likely heard of Zoom before, but just to clarify, this is not to be confused with the Zoom video conferencing app that everyone knows and uses. These are two completely different companies. So Zoom Corporation have been around for quite a while, and they make a range of different audio equipment, including audio recorders, which is what I'm reviewing today. I've owned a couple of their recorders in the past, and they have been very reliable, especially for my needs as a videographer. Their products are generally more budget-friendly and geared towards prosumer users, so really advanced features that industry professionals might use are not typically offered in their line of products, and the build quality of their products are generally a bit more plastic in nature, from what I've experienced anyway. But I'm definitely not in any way saying that their products are inferior, just that when you do compare them to their higher-end, more expensive competitors, there is a noticeable difference, which of course is expected given you are paying for those premium features. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. As of this recording, the current price I've found online is around $150 from most retailers. They don't sell directly to customers, so you will need to buy from an authorized retailer. So the main reason I was so interested in getting this audio recorder was to use with my Sony FX30. The FX30 and also the FX3 doesn't have any built-in full-size or mini XLR inputs on the camera body itself. And I was also not very interested in getting the official Sony XLR handle for a number of reasons, so this Zoom recorder looked like it could be a great alternative. So the first thing that you might have noticed is just how small this thing is. It's smaller than most smartphones, which makes it super compact to store and travel with. You could literally put it in your pockets if you wanted to. And it only weighs 168 grams, even with the AA batteries in them. The design is pretty interesting. Most audio recorders take the form of a box, or cube, or rectangular prism. It looks like they designed this to really minimize its overall size and weight, with just enough room to fit the electronics and other internal components. And it is mostly comprised of a hard plastic, but still feels very sturdy. So on the front are the main buttons and the screen. On the left side is the audio jack for headphone monitoring and line out, the volume control for the audio jack, as well as the MicroSD card slot, which has a little extruded latch on it, making it much easier to open, which is a nice touch compared to other recorders I've used. On the other side is the power and hold switch, a USB-C port for either powering the device, transferring files, or to be used as an audio interface, which I'll touch on later in the video, and also the line-in port. And you may be wondering what the hold switch does. Let me just turn the unit on first by pushing and holding it for a few seconds towards the power icon. And now that it's on, I can switch it over to hold. So the hold basically disables all of the buttons in case you or someone else accidentally presses them, or as a way to prevent unauthorized people from tampering with or messing with the settings. It will also display a hold message on the screen if you do press on any of the buttons, although you are still able to adjust the volume from the side dial, which does make sense for recording and listening purposes. On the rear you have the speakers, a standard 1/4" 20 thread for mounting the device to a range of things, and the battery compartment, which uses a double latch locking system, which I actually quite like, and I don't feel as if the door will easily break or come apart. It also has some rubberized sections on the top and bottom for better gripping. And finally, on the top are two XLR and TRS combo units, with the inputs clearly labeled on the front. And on the side of each one is the option to switch between mic and line for that particular input. So with the 1/4" thread, you'll likely screw in some form of articulating arm or ball head to then mount to something like a boom pole, or a light stand, or any other fixture that you might need. For my particular purposes, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, I would mostly be mounting this to my camera, specifically to a top handle, which gives me the most flexibility in how I want to set things up. So having XLR and TRS combo inputs means that it will work with a lot of different microphones, instruments, and audio equipment. So here I have a TRS, TS, and XLR cable. This one is actually a TRS adapter to 3.5 mini jack. This one is a TS cable and an XLR cable, which is the most secure of the three. It's important to always make sure you're using the correct cable with whatever you're plugging in, otherwise it may cause issues or not pick up any audio and may even damage the audio recorder. With XLR cables, you need to push in the release tab in order to unplug the connector. And with TRS and TS cables, they should just fit in snugly and stay in place when you plug them in, and won't require any additional steps in order to remove them. So with the TS cable connected to this electric acoustic guitar, I'm just going to do a quick test recording. So the main advertised feature of this particular recorder is the inclusion of 32-bit float, which is becoming more and more standard now, with a number of different brands releasing new products with this feature. For those of you who are not familiar, the industry standard for audio and video professionals for a long time has been to use 24-bit depth for audio, which has and still is a fantastic option, providing a good balance between flexibility and file size. What makes 32-bit float so different and unique though is its ability to capture sounds that are super quiet or super loud and still be able to bring them back to a proper level in post without any issues. In comparison to 24 bits, this just would not be possible. You would either get clipped audio or too much unwanted noise or distortion, making the recording pretty unusable. So it's become a very attractive option for many because it means you don't have to worry so much about unpredictable sounds becoming too loud or too quiet when recording. But just to make this clear, the 32-bit float recording only applies when recording straight to the microSD card in the device. Speaking of microSD cards, it accepts both microSD HC and microSD XC, with the accepted storage capacities shown here. So if you are also connecting a cable from the recorder to the camera, the audio in the video file from the camera will not have recorded the audio in 32-bit float. You would typically start recording on the Zoom recorder and then immediately start recording from the camera. This way you have a high quality backup from the Zoom recorder, which can then also be used to sync up with the camera's audio recording from the video file in post. In terms of the menu and settings, I won't be going into depth about all the operations and options, as this is meant to be a general overview of the device only. The buttons are very tactile and responsive, but as you've probably noticed, they are quite small, so someone with larger fingers may find this more difficult to use. Additionally, the screen size is also fairly small, so someone with poorer vision or difficulty reading small text may find this a bit cumbersome. However, they have included an accessibility feature called Guide Sound, which can be pretty helpful. So it basically enables audible feedback, so a beep will sound when you press on a button. And if you select the English plus beep option, there'll be a voice read out all the options to you as well. And this would be useful for those people who have trouble reading small text or with vision impairment, or even in situations where you can't or don't want to look at the screen. Another thing I have noticed is in the way you navigate through the menu, with the 4 buttons acting as the arrow keys and the back and enter buttons, which is different from some of their older devices which had a dedicated dial on the side to navigate and click in to confirm. I find this method to be a little bit slower than having a dedicated dial, but it's definitely not something that bothers me too much. I would say that they've included the standard amount of settings that you would most likely need and expect from a recorder of this caliber and price. In terms of the battery life, this will depend on the type of battery you're using and whether or not you have other functions on, like phantom power, and also the number of inputs being used. Phantom power is power that's delivered to a device through the same balanced cable that also transmits audio signals and doesn't interfere with that signal. And most commonly, this would be to a microphone. However, not all microphones require phantom power, as some do operate through battery power. So to turn phantom power on, you first go into the menu, then input settings, and then select the input you want to power, and then phantom, and you turn it on, which will then provide typically 48 volts to the microphone. So if you do plug in a microphone and you don't hear anything at all or see any waveforms on the screen, you may not have phantom power turned on. You can also choose to use AC power, but you will need to get a separate adapter as one isn't provided with the device. Zoom does sell one, but you can pretty much get these anywhere online. Just make sure that the adapter outputs 5 volts and at least 0.5 amps or higher, as the audio recorder does draw 2.5 watts of power. The third option is to connect it to a power bank or V-mount battery, which could be a better option as it's both portable and holds a larger capacity. And you could even have these plugged in along with the batteries left in the recorder as a backup when the power does deplete, or to pull out the cable without turning the unit off. The battery icon will disappear once you plug power into the USB port and reappear when you disconnect. And speaking of the battery status, one thing that I really dislike is how it's displayed. Showing only 3 bars isn't a great indicator of how much battery is actually left. It would be so much better displaying the actual percentage or adding this on a page in the menu where there's more room. I do hope they incorporate this in an upcoming firmware. In terms of the audio interface, what this means is that this device acts as an intermediary and allows you to connect it to a computer, tablet, or smartphone and have the audio be able to record onto those devices as well. So to do this on a computer, whether it's a Mac or PC, you would need to use some form of audio software. Other ones that come with the computer, like voice memos for example, but much more likely it'll be something like a DAW, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation, which is really just a fancy name for any advanced software specifically used to record, edit, mix, and produce audio projects. And some very popular ones are Ableton Live, Pro Tools, Adobe Audition, and DaVinci Resolve Fairlight, just to name a few. I did also test it on an Android tablet and Android phone, and they do work with the normal USB-C data cable. However, I was unable to test it with my current iPhone and iPad models, as those require a Lightning to USB 3 camera adapter to work, unless you have a new iPhone model that does use USB-C. There are also limitations in terms of which phones and tablets can accept 32-bit float, so depending on your particular model of phone or tablet, you might need to select the 48 kHz 16-bit recording option in order to record. You do also get a loopback option in the audio interface, which means that any sounds coming from your computer, tablet or phone can also be recorded along with the microphone audio. So you could, for example, narrate over something or sing over music that's playing from the device. You would generally be using this loopback function on a computer, however, as it's much harder to make work on phones and tablets. The loopback function also doesn't record any of those sounds onto the Zoom recording, only from the microphone input. So realistically, the loopback function works best in a DAW. So personally, I do own a higher-end field recorder for more complex shoots, or if I'm in need of more inputs, like if I'm doing a 4-person interview that requires 4 mics. But most of the time I won't be doing this, and that's when this Zoom recorder comes in handy. as I'd prefer to have something small that can pack away nicely, but still do the job. It's just one less bulky thing that I need to bring and take time to set up on the day. And also being compact enough to mount onto my camera rig is also an important factor. So my final thoughts are that whether you're an indie filmmaker, videographer, content creator, musician, or just getting into sound recording on set or at home, then this audio recorder is definitely worth considering. Given how compact and light it is, as well as being very affordable, this is a great device to get started with, especially if you are new to audio gear or have absolutely zero experience with any audio devices. And if you are someone who owns multiple audio devices already, then this could be a nice addition to have, or just to use as a backup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found this review helpful. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.